Okay, so hello guys, I'm Yavo and I'll be your presenter today. So in today's training, we'll be talking about Telerik UI for WinForms, and we'll explore what the Telerik UI brings to the table. And But before we move on with the content, I'd like to say a few words about the initiative. So I'm very proud to welcome you to this virtual classroom. As you know, Progress has a long history of providing tools to make developers happy and successful. They have great UI components, superb documentation, the very best support, and now with the virtual classroom, the very best trainings at no additional cost for you. So this is a free training program for all Telerik active license holders. So if you have any questions or comments, I will be really really happy to answer them. So just feel free to post them in the chat. So this is I want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have just anything, write it in the chat, and me or my colleagues that are here today on this training with me will do their best to answer them. So let's see our schedule. So as you can see, we are closing this. We are approaching the end of the trainings. So so far we've been talking about Kendo UI, and also export Xamarin and WPF. And last time, Vladimir introduced us to the Telerik reporting and the report server. So we have created more than 30 hours of content. And as you know, if you've been following along, this program is designed to get you quickly onboarded with the tools. So it doesn't matter if you have been using them for many years or you're just starting. We have content for each one of you. So in each session, we are providing practical knowledge, helpful approaches, and we focus on the best practices in order to get you started with application development quickly. And as you know, all the recordings, videos, slides, and demos are available to you after the training is complete. And you can check out the GitHub repository, and you'll find the slides and demo applications right there. All right. So I'm Yavo. I'm a senior software architect at New Venture Software. So I've been doing application development for many years, and I've been part of the Progress team doing WPF and Silverlight data visualization and charging solutions. And I like to work from time to time when I have some interesting stuff to share, so you can check out our blogs. And I also like to hang out at GitHub. So this is how you can contact me. So if you have any trouble with the content or just any feedback, suggestions, or need help, just feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll answer as quickly as possible. Okay. So our company is New Venture Software. We're a premium consulting and professional services partner for Progress Telerik products and technologies. We support all Telerik products and technologies, and we have a successful track record of delivering future-proof software consulting and development solutions. The fact that we're so successful comes from the fact that most of my colleagues, including myself, are ex-Progress software architects, and we have created a lot of the tools in the DevCraft suite. So my teammates and I feel honored and excited to have the opportunity to share our experience and passion for the Telerik technologies with you guys. So without further ado, let's see what we'll be talking about today. Okay, so first we'll start with the TPF. So we'll see what the TPF, or that's a short for Telerik Presentation Frameworks. What is it? Why is it important? And how we can use that to create stunning applications and do really nice customizations. Then we'll see about teams. As seasoned WinForms developers, you know that teaming and customization can be a pain in WinForms, and we can see how easy it is to leverage the themes that come with the Telerik UI suite to create stunning UI, and also explore the components that come with the suite and see how we can customize them. And yeah, a big topic here, how we can convert our existing apps to the right controls. So you have just an existing application that you have been working on, and you want to leverage all the things that the right control suite brings, but you want to get that converted as quickly as possible and easy, and we'll see how we can do that. And finally, we talk about one design pattern, one architectural pattern that can really help you in separating the presentation and the business logic and the data, and how you can make your applications testable and easy to maintain. So that's very important in today's software, as you know. So if you're ready, let's start. So first, why you should bother with Telerik? Why is it? What good does it bring us? So first, it brings us a lot of UI components, more than 120 components that are specifically designed for different scenarios. There are some small components like buttons or combo box, previews, stuff like that. And there are like some really major components like diagram, charting, solution, what grid view, and scheduler, stuff like that. So it doesn't matter what your application is and what your scenario is. I'm sure you'll find something useful in the Telerik UI suite. Also, those components are built with performance in mind, and all those components are built on top of the TPF, the Telerik presentation framework. So they support, they have a great performance, and they can be easily customized and make them to suit your needs. And there are plenty of themes that come with the suite. The last one is a fully designed theme shipped just recently, and more themes will come in the future. So, and we'll see how easy it is to load new themes or even to modify existing themes. And also, the Telerik suite brings support for high DPI support. So if you have some troubles with DPI and application bonus on Windows 8.1 and above, so you'll be pleased to know that the Telerik components are DPI aware, and we'll see how we can leverage that. And also, one good is that you have a multi-touch. So if you want to bring multi-touch support to your WinForms applications, you can do that with the Telerik suite. Okay, and also you should know that most of the built-in components have some kind of touch handling logic on them, some logic that makes sense to those components are built in. We'll talk about that in a later slide. Okay, so how do we install the Telerik components for WinForms? Well, I said there are a number of methods to do that. First, you can use the Telerik UI for WinForms setup that you can download from the website or an MSI store. And those two guys create a lot of stuff, do a lot of stuff. So first, they copy the assemblies and files on your machine, and it installs the assemblies in the global assembly cache. And also, the assemblies are precompiled to create native images so that you get as best performance as possible. And also, it does Visual Studio integration. So we have Visual Studio that later than the 2005, it will install all the components to the Visual Studio toolbox. It will also add a bunch of very useful Visual Studio templates. And also there's some extensions to Visual Studio and also a converter tool. And we'll see how we'll be using all those in our today's training. So these are very useful things that you as a developer will be very pleased that they are there in Visual Studio. But if you're not interested in that stuff, or you just simply need to update to a newer version, you can use a zip archive for manual installation, or use a NuGet feed that the Telerik offers. So yeah, you can install one version using the setup and then upgrade to latest internal build or some better version, and you can use the second two options to do that. All right, so let's start now with a more in-depth talk about WinForms. So the data presentation foundation, what is it? So all the controls in the suite are built on that framework, the TPF. And what it is it allows the UI to be split into bits and pieces that allow easy customization and bring a lot of WPF-like features to WinForms. So we have things like data binding, styling, dependency properties, layout, stuff like that. So all that the Telerik guys have built, and they're calling it the Telerik presentation framework foundation. So here in this slide, you're seeing the internal structure of a simple RAD button. So a simple button, when you examine its structure in one of the tools that come with the suite, the Visual Style Builder or the Control Spy, or if you examine it in the Visual Studio Designer in the element hierarchy editor that you can launch from the Smart Tag, you see just that. So here on the top, we see that we have a root RAD element with, and that has a single descendant, a RAD button element. And in that RAD button element, we see things like fill primitive, border primitive, and focus primitive. So primitives are just things that that display atomic stuff on the screen, like the fill, the border of the button, and also you can see that we have the image and the text display as a primitives again, and they're wrapped in a special kind of panel, the image and text layout panel. So the image of the button and the text get displayed by those two primitives. So you can customize each one of those primitives. And for example, you can hide the border, or you can change the fill primitive to some to apply some gradient to it, or whatever. So it's very easy to create deep customization using that. And this is just the button, but the other components have a similar structure that depicts their visual representation, and you can examine that. All right, so let's see what the benefits of using TPF are. As I said, it supports deep customization, and also it brings theming to the table. So you can group together property settings and group them in a theme. You can also use a built-in theme and modify it. It also brings to the table animations. So now animations are very easy. You can create not only some stock animations, but you can animate every property. So you can animate things like the border thickness, the padding, the margin, or just or even a color. And you can have a complete control over that. And also, if you're interested, you can actually create your own custom components very easily. So no on-paint override needed. You can leverage the TPF, do your own logic, and then use those primitives and elements to create the UI or the custom control. All right, so let's see Let's see the classes that form the TPF and what their purposes are. So first we have the RAT object, which is the base, the sort of base class for all RAT element objects that have the ability to store property values. So it's similar to dependency object that we have in the WPF. So those properties are stored in the RAT object internal structures. Then we have the RAT element, which is a very important class. You see it in many places in today's training and in your day-to-day development in WinForms. So that's a key class that represents the smallest unit in a RAT control that can be painted or laid out on the screen. So RAT element is the base class for all elements that take advantage of TPF features like property inheritance, layout, and styling. And RAT element implements a tree-like structure of RAT objects, property value inheritance, and automatic layout, and display validation based on the options of the property metadata of each RAT property. And we'll see about that. And the RAT element has a size and location that's specified in coordinates in relation to its parent. Okay, so the visual element adds visual properties common to all elements that can be painted, like back color, foreground color, font, default size, opacity, stuff like that, visual stuff. And then we have another important aspect of the TPF, the primitives. So all primitives descend from this base primitive class. And all it does, it implements a iPrimitive interface, which brings a single property should paint and a paint primitive method. So the descendant of the base primitive override these methods to represent some atomic visual components like text, fill, checkbox, arrow, and we'll see what primitives come stock with the TPF. But it's very easy to create your own primitive. Then we have layout. So layout, they descend from RAT element, and they coordinate their descendants and they control the sizing and position. Just if you have been doing the OPF, that this corresponds to the panels that we have there. And then we have the RAT item, which represents a visual element which could be added to an items collection and can be selected, deleted, or moved using Visual Studio Design Time. And by default, this class knows how to handle user input. And finally, we have the RAT control, which also is an important class. This is an abstract class for all RAT controls. So each RAT control contains a tree of RAT elements, and the tree has a root, as we saw in our demo. And the RAT control root element is the tree root, and the children are displayed underneath. So the nesting of the elements in this tree represents the visual nesting that's displayed in the control. So elements are painted starting from the root and to the leaves of the tree. So if I just open up this picture here of the button, we see the button element, and we see here the leaves, the primitives. So the leaves are most often primitive elements, like we see here, like text and views and borders. And RAT control acts as a bridge between the traditional WinForms controls and the RAT elements tree. So events, for example, are captured in the traditional way, and then they are routed to the root RAT element, where they continue to tunnel down to other elements in the tree. And also the RAT control recognizes when the mouse is over a given element. And the RAT control defines properties that are common to all controls, like theme name, style, image scaling properties, minimum and maximum sizes. Okay, so let's see now how those classes create a diagram. And here we can see that the RAT object is on top. And from there, everything in the TPF just inherits the route element, which is very used. It sits right below the route object, and from there the layout panel and the visual element inherit. Okay, and the route control is sits here on the bottom, and the connection to the element structure is done using the root element property. From there, we have the TPF. Okay, so this one is used to plug into the WinForms hierarchy. And here we have the root route element, which plugs the TPF stuff. Okay. So let's see what primitives do we have. First, we have the text primitive, which represents just a string of text. But not only that. So border primitive it represents the border around the control area. And we have the fill primitive, which represents the fill. Then we have two simple 2D primitives for a line and a rectangle. And also we have a check primitive that represents a check of a checkbox, and the radial primitive, which represents the radial ellipse. And when we need an image, we can use the image primitive. And those are some other primitives that are used in things like an arrow in a route drop-down button, or an overflow indicator, or just a grip, or the progress bar. So those are small atomic elements, primitives that you can arrange to form up a bigger control. Okay. And how do we arrange those components? We use layout. And the layout system places elements and controls on the screen in the most optimal way for the user to see them. And there are two layout systems that route controls work with. We have the outer layout system, which is the Microsoft layout system for WinForms. This layout system arranges controls on the form and top-level windows on the desktop. And then we have the inner layout system, which is the TPF. And the TPF layout system arranges elements within the route controls themselves. And those two layout systems interact with each other so that the outer layouts affect the inner one and vice versa. And there are a number of predefined layout panels. So we have the stack layout panel, which, as you know, arranges elements or childs in a vertical horizontal row. The wrap layout panel, which does the same, but you can also wrap the elements to additional lines if there is no more space for it. Then we have the grid layout, which creates a tabular structure of rows and columns similar to a table in HTML. And it's a very powerful layout panel because it allows three different sizing models to be used for its rows and columns. So they can be fixed in size, they can be proportional, or they can automatically resize to fit their children. And we already saw the image and text layout panel, which it can be simple. It can be deceptively simple. It's only used to arrange an image primitive and a text primitive. But when you take into account that the image can resize and the text can resize when the user types more text, then it handles all of that. And yeah, it's a very powerful and used layout panel. And then we have some other layout panels that are not very used, like the box layout and the dock layout. And the dock layout is similar to what we have in WinForms, that you can dock content to the top, to the left, or just view. All right, let's switch now and talk about the dependency properties. So the dependency properties is a TPF feature that that brings to the table things like data binding, default values, value validation, animation, change monitoring, and the RAD control support the Telerik presentation framework dependency property system. So dependency properties are just properties that depend on the values of other inputs or user inputs. So unlike the standard common language runtime properties, the dependency properties may get their input from multiple sources like themes, animation, data binding, or to parent-child relationship with other elements in the element tree. So let's see how what property is defined. So here we see a definition of a simple property named isDefaultButton. And the syntax is we need a static field of type what property, and we need to register this this property with the system using the static register method. And this is very similar to what we have in WPF, but if you haven't created such a property, I'll walk you through it. So you just go register, give the name of the property, and then we need to specify the type of the property. So it's a Boolean, and then the type of the owner. So here is my button element. And then we specify the metadata. So I already mentioned that. So here's what it is. So the what element property metadata gives us things like a default value. So here I'm specifying that the default value is false, but it can also be true. And also there are things like property options, and those allow us to do things like when the property is set, it can make the UI invalid, so it needs to be repainted, for example. Or, for example, it can affect the size. So when this property is set, the control may need to be resized or stuff like that. So it's very, very powerful. And see here that all what properties, dependency property, come bundled with the COR property so that we can get to set its value. But all it does, it calls a method that comes from what object, so get and set value. So as I mentioned, the actual property values are stored in the what object internal structure. And finally, I'm showing here that you can get notified when this property gets changed. So whenever someone or something sets this this property, this callback will be called, and you can get the property changed. You can get the new and the old value. So very similar to what we have in WPF, but here you're getting this feature in WinForms. Okay. So one cool thing about the text primitive is that it doesn't only support simple basic strings, but it also supports rich text. And you can specify this rich text using the art markup editor, or you can display it you can set it up in code behind. And here I'm setting some rich text using HTML-like syntax, but it supports some a bit more features than the HTML. Like you see here, I'm setting that the size of this is what label text should be 12, and here for the next element, I'm setting the font to be Arial using this font equals kind of element. And you can use it. You can use this syntax, or you can use the markup editor. But I'm sure that you find the what markup editor to be easier for you. Okay, so that's cool. But one key feature of the what controls for WinForms feature is the high DPI support. So the Windows 8.1 introduced a new DPI scaling per monitor feature, and applications that do not declare themselves as DPI aware always get bitmap scaled, even though they can render properly under high DPI settings. So what bitmap scaled means is that the whole application gets screenshotted, and then it gets resized to accommodate the higher DPI, and this can lead to blurriness. Like you can see here in the left screenshot, you see that the text is not pixel perfect, and it's blurry, and the user experience is not so great. And the UI for WinForms is giving you Windows app support for high resolution DPI monitors as a built-in feature. In R2 release of 2017, they have the Telerik has introduced the built-in HDPI support in the suite. So this coincides with some HDPI improvements Microsoft is bringing to the .NET framework and the Windows 10 Creators Update. And the best part is that you can get this support no matter which version of the .NET you are targeting. So anything from .NET 2.0 upwards is supported. And with the changes that Telerik is introducing, the common problem of bad scaling goes away when you run on high resolution monitors. And all you have to do is declare that your application is DPI aware, and the RAD controls will scale themselves in accordance to the DPI settings of the monitor automatically for you. As you see here in the right screenshot, the text is appearing great, it's looking sharp, and no matter that we are running on a high DPI monitor, the alignment is great, and the text is sharp. And all that it's needed is to define. Yeah, I'm here opening the blog post about this topic that you can find, and all that's needed is per monitor DPI settings that needs to be added to a manifest file that you need to add to your application. And let me just find it here. Yep, that's it. So that's the manifest file. It's just a few lines of code, and all that it says is that your application is DPI aware. And there are a few possibilities, like tool to enable DPI aware, and also you can make it tool per monitor for per monitor DPI aware. So if you have, if your client has multiple monitors connected to his PC, and each monitor has its own DPI settings, your application will take care of that. All right, let's move on with the slides. So also touch support is one key feature. So the Telerik UI for WinForms suite provides full multi-touch support. All controls in the suite are exposing several events that grant the developer the ability to easily handle gestures on touch devices. This functionality is currently supported on the Windows 7 or newer, and some of the controls in the suite have a built-in functionality that respond to the gestures. For example, you can use a pan gesture to scroll to the RAD grid view rows, or group by a column, or change the order of the columns. So similar functionality is available out of the box to the RAD tree view, the RAD list view, the RAD property grid, the RAD list control, and so on. And what are the touch events that available? So you can hook up to a pan event. So when the user pans, you can just do some custom logic to provide panning or some action that needs to happen when the user pans. You can also do things like when the user taps twice, what should happen then? And it's very easy to provide such a custom logic. And here in this code snippet, I'll show just that. So when the simple button gets rotated with a gesture, I can just hook up an event, and here I'm getting the angle which the button should be rotated to, and I can rotate the whole button using a transformation. I'll talk about transformation in the next slide. But as you see, it's very, very simple to create components that need to be touch aware, and the Telerik suite handles all the heavy lifting for you. And all you need to do is just implement the corresponding event handlers and bring your logic into those. So what are those angle transform and scale transform? So those are transformations, and then a bunch of them. So we have a rotate transform that can rotate the component to an angle. There is a scale transform that can scale it both horizontally or vertically. And there is a translate named position offset, which allows the element to be translated to using a vector on horizontal or vertical offset. So that's a really useful for scenarios like that. One cool feature that was introduced recently is the highlight and border highlight mouse effects. And you can see in this animation here what they are. It basically follows your mouse cursor along the element and it brings those nice mouse highlight effects. And those can be controlled independently. The border and the highlight effect can be controlled independently and customized independently. So that's really nice. And also animations. So how can we create an animation like we see here in this video? So it's very simple. When the button gets clicked, I'm creating an animated property setting, which is basically a setting for dependency property. Then I'm setting that this property should be the margin property of the what element. If you remember, the property, the dependency property is first declared as it's registered on a static field, and here that's exposed as the margin property field. So you assign that to the animated property setting, and then you define things like start value and end value. And because the margin property is of type padding, you set those values, and then you can say things like a number of frames. So here I'm setting 14 FPS and an interval of 30 milliseconds. And when you apply this value to the button, then you get this cool just breathing effect, breathing animation. But this animation can easily create animation for different things like border thickness or even position. So it's very cool. You can create a totally custom and great animations very easily. All right, so enough talking. Let's now switch back to Visual Studio and see how we can leverage the TPF. Let's see how we can create an application using the Visual Studio item templates. We'll see what it will create for us. Then we will just customize our button using the TPF, the element structure. And also we will create a custom component that will display just a digital clock on the screen. So it's a very simple component, but it will show us the TPF advantages. Okay, so let me switch back to, let me open up the Visual Studio here. I'm using Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition, but any version is good enough. So okay, so I'll just go to File, New Project, and you see here that I have a project template named Telerik Windows Form Application. And that's very useful because with just a simple with this project template, it will create all of the things that I really need. It will reference the assemblies, and it will create a what form for me. So let me just name. Let me just select a location, and I will name this project TPF Hello. Okay, and okay, let's. Oh, I already have a project there. All right. And here is a wizard, a new project wizard. And for this demo, I will use the blank template. But you can see here that there is the calendar template, mail, Outlook Inspired, Word. So you can explore those. So if your application needs to look something like a mail client or a Word document processing, you can use some of those project templates. But I'll just start with a blank one. Click Finish, and now Visual Studio will create my template. All right. So it's a very simple solution here, but let's see what the project template has created for me. So first notice that it has referenced the appropriate template. So we have the Telerik.WinControls, Telerik.WinControls.UI, and the Telerik common. So it has automatically pulled those assemblies for me and add them as references. And the next difference to just a regular WinForms project is the addition of a RAD form compared to just a regular WinForms form. So the RAD form, as you see in the code behind, is very similar to just a regular WinForm, but it descends from a RAD form. So this brings support for the Telerik controls and theming, stuff like that. So let me open up this RAD form here in the designer, just expand it a bit. Okay, and one here in the toolbox, let me initialize. As you seen, all of the components are already filled in, so I can just drag and drop like any regular component. So that's actually the benefit of using the setups. It adds all those things for you in your Visual Studio. So creating a new project and adding the RAD controls to the designer is just very, very simple and straightforward. You see it, I'm just creating a new project and doing it as a regular, just standard WinForms project. But now I'm just targeting the RAD control suite. Okay, so one nice component that I want to show you is the RAD barcode, which is a new addition to the suite. It was introduced only recently, and it brings barcodes, both 1D and 2D dimensional barcodes to the table. So it's very nice. And let me just create here for starters, it's creating a QR barcode. And here in the Smart Tag, you can notice the different settings that can be applied. So all the barcodes symbologies are supported on are set on a single RAD barcode control. What I mean is, no matter if you need a 1D code 39, code 128, or QR barcode, all you need to do is just add a RAD barcode control to your design surface and set up its settings. So here I'll just, for example, I want to create a code 39 barcode. Just select the symbology. Yeah. And I need to open up the Smart Tag again. And here we see I have selected the symbology of code 39. And here in the value, I can set some value. All right, and we have properties like show text. All right, and checksum that will add a checksum to the barcode itself. All right. So yeah, you see that's very easy to create a barcode like that. But yeah, you may be asking, why isn't this barcode stretched to fill the container, or why is it on a white background? So I have been doing some development that requires barcodes, and when you add barcodes to your application, you're doing it because you need to print those things, or you just need to provide the ability for your customers to read them. And barcode readers have the tendency to be a bit tricky. So I mean, they can sometimes not read your barcodes correctly. So the things like the background color is very important. So sometimes it needs to be white, and the barcode size is of importance also. So you can stretch it out but then you have to really make sure to test it out and see that it's readable. And yeah, things like the aspect ratio also has to do with that. So the Telerik guys have you covered on that. So even that you may not know these things, they're making sure that your barcodes are as readable as possible. Okay, so that's the one barcode. You can explore them in the documentation. There are a number of symbologies, and they all come with different properties and stuff. Yeah, so it's a very big topic. Yeah, but it's a nice addition to the suite. Let me just delete this guy now, and let's explore the TPF. So I'll just add a simple right button. And let me explore here the internal structure of this button. So just a very simple, humble button, but when you open it up in the element hierarchy editor, you'll see its internal structure. And we have already talked about that. But let me customize it. I want to customize this button. And I want to edit its fill, the fill primitive. So instead of just selecting the control and opening up the properties and examining searching for property that sets the background to something that I need, I can just open up the element in the hierarchy editor, select the primitive that I want to be customized, like the fill in this case, and let's do something funky here. So I'll just set a gradient style on it, and there are a bunch of gradient styles. Okay, so office glass, yeah, that looks nice. And let me just put some gradient colors on it. So here this gradient is controlled by this back color properties. So here I'll start with, I can just select a color in the color dialog. And let me just select the book color here for the first back color. For the back color 2, I can use things like white, blue, right? And the back color 3 should be, yeah, something bluish. Yeah, this guy. Okay, and the back color 4, let's create it purple. All right, and you see that the right button is updating automatically in the designer in real time. I can now just stretch it up, and you see it's starting to look customized. Yeah, and let me just get rid of this border because it doesn't look good like this. So again, open up the edit UI elements in the smart tag, open up the border primitive, and let's hide it. So I'll be looking for something to control the visibility, and that's the visibility property. Yeah, just here it is. So I'll say it's visible but not collapsed. Close it, and that's it. So you can see just with a simple few clicks, I'm using the power of the TPF to create a button that looks exactly as I wanted. So if your designer come up with just a crazy idea for design, you can leverage the TPF to make it happen. So that's very cool. Okay, and let me just change the text of this button because we just the text of what button one is not to my liking. So I'll just, yeah, and as I said, you can either put some simple text, like a plain text, or you can just create a markup formatted text. I'll just start the markup editor here. And let's say something like hello world, but I'll say hello TPF here. And I can customize, I can format the TPF individually. And that's very cool when you think about it, because with just a simple clicks, you can create powerful text representation in WinForms using, and you're displaying this customized text using just a single button. Okay, let's click on apply, close it, and it's applied. All right, let me start the application and let's see how it looks like. All right. Let me now add a click handler for that. I'll just double click it. And now I want to display just a simple text saying hello TPF on the button click. So we have the opportunity to use the message box, the plain old message box that we all know. You can use that. But yeah, I'll just show you why it's not a really good idea to use the message box here, because yeah, look that my platform is just kind of bullish because it's using the a theme here, and when I open the message box, it just shows the plain old message box. So if I have applied a custom theme, just a personally selected theme for my form and my controls, then the message box just looks a bit out of place. So you can use another form of a message box here, the what message box, with just a simple, yeah, I have to use other using for the Telerik UI controls, and now with just a simple text, a simple change like that, you can see that we have a nice looking message box that really blends with my application now. All right. And before we create a custom component, as scary as it sounds, let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll continue after that. Okay. So let's take a 10-minute break.